The shepherd growls at the child every evening. Having learned the reason, the parents were horrified. Yana put her 1-year-old daughter to bed and lay down on the bed next to her husband. Today was a hard day and both spouses decided to go to bed early. "Darling, don't you think Char was acting a little restless last night?" The wife's voice expressed slight concern. "Don't exaggerate, everything's fine with our old lady." Kirill lay down comfortably on his right side and yawned deliciously. The pet's been living with its owners for almost 7 years. Yana was surprised more than once after another reasonable prank of her pet. Still would. With the arrival of Virichka's daughter in the family, Chara immediately changed her place in the apartment. Now she spent most of the day not on the rug near the spouse's bed, but near the head of the baby's bed. Maybe I just dreamed something scary, Yana thought then. But the next night, the vigilant housewife was able to hear Chara's growl. The young woman got out of bed and entered the nursery. The girl looked fearfully at her 4-legged friend and pulled her hands towards him. However, she looked excitedly in the girl's direction. By all signs, it was clear that the shepherd dog was reacting negatively to some factor associated with the child. Yana took her daughter out of the crib and took her to the room, but the dog remained in the nursery. From the woman's voice, one could understand she was reliving a nightmare. The next night, the husband persuaded the compassionate mother to trust Chara, who behaved as usual all day. However, at night, alarming sounds were heard from the baby monitor. The shepherd began to growl menacingly again, and Virichka, waking up, even began to cry. The husband couldn't figure out what made the usually perfectly adequate shepherd dog so angry. Under no circumstances did Kirill allow the slightest thought of parting with Chara, whom he considered a full-fledged member of the family. Kirill carefully selected the right words, after which he continued the phrase, "You can't compare something that is absolutely incomparable." Of course, this behavior of the owner upset the dog, but even this did not stop the 4-legged friend. Chara continued to growl for a long time that night, but just recently all family members doted on Chara, who repaid them with faithful service. And only the vigilant Chara saw the emerging tragedy and in 2 leaps found herself near the boy. "Look, you almost ran over a child. If it weren't for Chara, then now—" The man couldn't even utter the terrible words out of excitement. The driver got out of the car and looked at the dog, which had already let go of the rescued child and began to growl at the source of the threat. Kirill managed to approach Chara and stroked her on the withers. Mom, her eyes widened in horror, looked at first Kirill, then at the owner of the car, not understanding who she should unleash her anger on. "My beloved little charm, I'll never betray you. If you get sick or become old, I'll figure out what to do. After all, my parents live in the village, and I'll take you to them and visit you every week." There was no severity in Kirill's thoughts. However, the young man prepared to make a clear plan. Kirill met with a friend and decided to discuss the problem that had arisen. "Misha, tell me, like a dog lover to a dog lover, you should carefully monitor Chara, maybe film it, and then review everything from the moment such uncharacteristic behavior occurred." Kirill scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Sleep with your daughter and dog. Make yourself a temporary shelter." Kirill made a decision, so his soul became lighter. Surprisingly, at the same time when her husband was talking to a friend, Yana met with her former classmate on a similar occasion. Nadia was a typical heartbreaker and always solved her problems with men exclusively through the prism of romantic relationships. "No one could do that to me." Yes, the girl agreed thoughtfully. Her own plan was already beginning to mature in her head. And in the evening after dinner, the couple decided to discuss new tactics of behavior. "Darling, you don't understand that I won't allow the dog to be alone with Virichka." Kirill calmly met his wife's gaze. "Are you serious?" Yana was experiencing a real shock because of her husband's indifferent attitude to the idea of spending the night separately, and then the lights in all the rooms of the apartment went out. Yana, having turned from side to side and grieved about the topic of marital responsibilities, finally fell asleep. The hour had passed midnight, and so Chara, lying calmly on the floor, opened her eyes. The impeccable guard took a few sensitive breaths and pricked up his ears, and a moment later the vigilant shepherd stood on all fours near Verichka's crib and began to growl menacingly. Kirill instantly woke up and turned on the flashlight he'd prepared in advance. He didn't use the overhead light so as not to wake the child. In addition, by directing the beam in the direction where Chara was looking, it was possible to accurately identify where the outgoing threat was from. "Wow!" The young man burst out laughing when he saw a dark spot in the corner of the wall that was moving. In an instant, Kirill managed to turn on the overhead light and roll the crib away from the source of the threat. Yana came running in response to the noise and lighting. Now it became obvious to the parents that Chara was growling at a large hairy spider located next to the crib. This black monster in the darkness completely merged with the wall and was impossible to see, and only the shepherd's sensitive sense of smell made it possible to detect the threat. "Kill it!" The wife kept her slippers ready. "Wait!" Kirill took a fly swatter and brought it to the spider. The insect, moving its long legs, climbed onto the handle attached to it. Virichka didn't even have time to wake up, and Chara was waving her fluffy tail with great pleasure and rubbing herself against her owner's leg. The next day, Kirill came to visit Nikolai Semyonovich. "This is a black character named Pashka. He ran away from me a few days ago. I already thought he died somewhere." Nikolai Semyonovich thought for a second, then widened his eyes and whispered in horror, "He's poisonous, deadly." Kirill was starting to get angry. "Excuse me." The biologist grabbed his head. Of course, Char approached the couple. Child's voice came from the room.